Joining us now is our strategist panel. Susan Smith is principal with Bluesky Strategy Group, Tim Powers, chairman with Summa Strategies, and Tom Parkin is with Impact Strategies. Hello to the three of you.
Hi, Michael.
Hi there. Hey, Michael.
Listen, I want to begin with surprises, in that were there any for you in this economic update? Susan, I'll get you to start us out.
Well, the finance minister, or there had been signals sent that there would be things for workers and for students. So whether or not it was a surprise, it was nice to see the concrete measures like interest rate forgiveness on student loans. I think the big surprise for me was the specific emphasis on unions and workers. Jobs has always been the broad category, but I think the government's done a good job of recognizing the concerns of Canadians and the need for labor force and tying some of the big investment tax credits that they're proposing to build and grow and expand the green economy to bringing better investments in labor and in apprenticeship. So I think that's a good surprise. I like the kind of surprise that I saw there.
Mm-hmm. Tim, how about you?
Three things, I guess, Michael. First of all, the level of spending may be a little bit higher than I thought it would be. Second, a clear strategy to keep in line with the United States and their most recent announcement on renewable energy and what they're trying to do in terms of their tax credit schemes for investing in the U.S. That, I think, is smart. The third, something Susan mentioned, and that is clearly there's a new political battle emerging around the votes of workers and students. I think the government maybe feels a bit vulnerable because you saw with Poilievre in his election as leader of the Conservative Party, he seemed to get traction among those two particular cadres. So the government is looking to see if they can wedge them back on side, I think.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Tom, what's your read on it? Any surprises for you?
Well, a little surprised that there was no help for families facing rising prices at a time when wages are stagnant. We didn't see anything, no action on the phenomenon of greedflation. We've been seeing report after report saying that, including today, that in the food industry, just as one example, there are rising profit margins, not just rising profits, but rising profit margins. So they're adding to inflation. These are billionaires who own our food companies that we shop at, three big ones controlling 60% of the market, nothing to hold back that inflation. So we're going to pay for that through high interest rates and a recession instead. So that's very disappointing. There's no action on that. And no targeted action for the many working families who, previously barely had their heads underwater, and now their head is, every week it's negative, and this is being picked up everywhere. That lower income, working class people are really struggling in this economy with this inflation. Others have tried to make hay with it, Mr. Poilievre, but he has no solutions other than complaining. The New Democrats certainly have put forward solutions, and I'm, with the exception of taking interest off a student loan, which is the NDP has campaigned for a couple of election cycles at least, I don't see anything that's giving relief for people. So the kind of outbreak of anger that working people are feeling, I think is going to continue.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because the government is warning us of tough economic times ahead, not using the recession word. It does make me wonder, are we in a recession? Are we headed towards a recession? Do you think we can avoid it? Susan, what do you think?
Well, a couple things, Michael, just to address Tom very quickly. There were things in there for families. The GST credit rebate check is going to land in people's bank accounts tomorrow. There's dental care, the provisions for dental care. There's the top up for low income renters. Those are things that are there for working families. To your question about tough economic headwinds, the big R word, I think all signals are there that we are bracing ourselves as a country for that. I think most of the G7 economies are bracing themselves for that. Central bankers are talking about it, not just in Canada. And the signals I think that Minister Freeland sent is that they're watching for that. That's why this is a prudent budget and that they've left room to deal with any significant economic headwinds that could come. The measures that are in place in this budget are not designed to exacerbate inflation. They're targeted at low-wage workers. They're targeted at low-income families to try and help them. And they're targeted to incent business to invest more in the economy to drive more jobs that will help grow the Canadian economy and help weather any kind of storms. But I do think we're going to have to brace ourselves. We have supply chains. Putin is still a madman in terms of how he's dealing with Ukraine. I think we're about to have COVID wave 127, and people are still locked down in China. And so supply chain issues aren't going to go away. So when you have basic supply and demand issues, that drives up the cost of things, and that's tough for people.
Mm-hmm. Tim, any word on any of that?
Well, I mean, are we in a recession yet? No, we haven't had the two, thankfully, negative quarters of negative growth, which never makes sense when economists say that. But anyway, so be it in the traditional sense. But yeah, look, you're seeing signs of it. Certainly, the government's trying to be very cautious about what it says in that regard. Again, we'll see if the balance has been struck. The critique that the Conservatives are offering, of course, is there's probably still a little too much spending. And to the point Tom made earlier, is more broad spread. Where's the more broad spread relief? Some of the things that even the premiers are asking for on the reduction of the carbon tax or pause on the carbon tax for now. But yeah, it's precarious, Michael, and I think all parties recognize that. I do have to say this is not a critique of Tom, but more of the NDP. The NDP are hollering about how bad it was, or how ineffective it was, but they're still in partnership with the Liberals. So it's a bit of a hollow cry, I find sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Tom, you want to respond to that?
Well, I want to actually come back to what Susan said, because I started by pointing out that, or saying that there was nothing here for families that are facing inflation with stagnant wages. And then Susan rifled, talking about the dental plan. Well, that was the NDP. She talked about the doubling of the rebate of GST. Well, that was the NDP. So where's and frankly, these aren't new. These weren't the announcement today. So there was nothing new today for this. Now, on the issue of recession, obviously the economists' consensus is we're heading for a recession next year. So I think there's a little bit of denial or not wanting to scare people too much, but that may be a little bit head in the sand. We've lost 200,000 jobs in this country since May. StatsCan reported today that building permits in this country are down 17.5% in 1 month. That was the biggest monthly drop that they've ever recorded. So for those people who want houses and those people who build houses, it's rough news in the future. So we're heading in a not a positive direction. And one of the other things that the New Democrats have been pushing on for a long time has been to fix the EI system, and nothing has been done, and it looks like we're heading into a recession. We saw that EI did not support a huge number of workers during the 2020 recession, and if we're going into a recession in 2023, those same workers are going to be hurt again. Where's the Liberals' plan? There's no plan for EI.
Well, that raises another topic for me because, if we are headed towards a recession, as many economists say we are, it makes me think about governing in a recessionary time and how that sets up the Liberals next time Canadians go for a vote. Susan, what do you think of this document in terms of trying to tell Canadians that they are there to support them, but also to navigate the country through a bad economic time, potentially a recession?
This is a fall or a fiscal economic statement. It's a fall update. It is not a full budget. What it is it's a report to Canadians on where the economy is, and it's some nuts and bolts always from the budget of earlier in the year. Mm-hmm. So we do have another budget that will come in 2023 that will have, I think, broader and more additional robust measures that deal with the fiscal realities as they are then. The one thing that we know over the last 3 years is predicting things has been a challenge, and governments need to be nimble. And this government has demonstrated that it can be nimble for Canadians. Minister Freeland, I think, is working to manage expectations, helping the families exactly that need it, but not putting, Scott Moe bucks out into the economy widely that drives inflation, drives demand in a different way that hurts more people. So I think this document is targeted at working families, targeted at low-wage workers. It's also targeted at driving more jobs. and helping modernize our economy to have a green economy and have more investment into the country. That's the right thing to do as we head into tougher economic times. Whether it translates into easy kitchen table conversation and how confident people are in the current Liberal government, how much they what kind of taste they have in their mouth for Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives, that remains to be seen. It's who you're going to trust, I think, will come down. But we're a ways to go before the election, I feel.
Tim, what do you think in terms of strategy, in terms of setting up the government in governing during recessionary times? What do you think of this update?
It's never easy to do that, regardless of who's in power. Look, it's one piece of a puzzle. I think the challenge the Liberals have, and they effectively acknowledged this before, now whether they've addressed it is another thing, is authenticity. Do Canadians feel, and you hear this in the comments Tom is making, the NDP are making, do Canadians feel the Liberals get their pay? And how will they be able to connect to Canadians, not just with what they do now, but how they speak about it? I saw the parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Finance earlier today say, oh, well, we're doing better than other countries. If the Liberals lead with that, they're not going to bridge the authenticity gap. But today, Michael is not going to decide whether they've connected or misfired. There's more runway to play out here and to go down.
Tom, a final word to you.
Well, the 23-24 budget, the 2023 and 24 budget is too far away. The prediction of a recession is that it'll start setting in the spring. We've already seen, as I mentioned, the impact on jobs. We're seeing the impact on construction. So growth is dripping away. So I don't know about Susan's idea that this is a particularly nimble government. Seems to me that they're a bit of a stumble government, not a nimble government, that they find themselves in situations and then have to create kind of ad hoc ways of dealing with it, like they did with CERB, which was a messy situation, needed to be done. But if we had a proper EI system, wouldn't it be necessary? The thing I worry about is seems to be a government that, Wayne Gretzky's whole thing is got to go to where the puck is going to be. And this is a government that seems to be always looking in the rearview mirror and not looking forward to where that puck is going to. I'm sorry to mix my analogies about cars and hockey, but there should have been a signal today about what this government is going to do to offset the recession, to help working families who are suffering right now from rising prices and stalled wages. And there should have been something about greedflation to try and stop recession, or stop some of the inflation so that interest rates can be relieved sooner and the damage to our economy is less. But we saw nothing of that. So I'm not sure, nimble. I think stumble, yeah.
Okay, well, we'll leave it at that. Susan, Tim, and Tom, thank you. Really appreciate the three of you joining us today.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.